Welcome to Traveled, where we take a journey to a specific region so you discover what makes this part of the world so unique. Before we get rolling with our guest this week, I wanted to share the love with our Traveled sponsor. This podcast is powered by Swing Outdoors, the Wet Fly Swing podcast, and Yellowstone Teton Territory. Please head over to wetflyswing.com/Teton to connect with the great brands that make up this amazing region of the country. Let's do it. Let's jump in and find out where that road less traveled is going to lead us today. How you doing, Dave?
I'm doing good.
Good. Thanks for setting some time aside here. It's been a little bit of work. I appreciate you for hanging in there to put this one together. You're in a neck of the woods that we've been to recently. There's a lot going on there. It's kind of a mecca, the South Fork of the Snake, really just eastern Idaho. So we're going to talk about that today, talk about how people can maybe put together a good trip out there. But also you have the Expo coming up. I think I want to hear about how that went this year and describe that. So before we get into all that today, let's take it back to your fishing, fly fishing. What is the first memory? How did you get into it?
Oh, I grew up in a fishing family, although my dad tended to do more spin fishing and trolling fishing.
Yeah.
Probably my first memory of fly fishing is probably at high mountain lakes. My dad liked to go to the high mountain lakes, and so I was probably fly fishing high mountain lakes when I was 6.
Okay.
8.
That's it. So you got started early. And what were you guys doing? Was this kind of off the bank or in float tubes, or how were you doing it?
Yeah, mostly off the bank. We were doing high mountain lakes you had to hike into. So at that time, carrying float tubes in was kind of prohibitive.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. So, and who was in the, with your dad, who was on the trip? Was this the whole family thing?
Yeah, we did whole family. I have a sister and my mom and dad, and then sometimes just my dad and me, and then sometimes my dad, me, and another friend and a son or something.
Gotcha. And where did you guys, did you grow up in Idaho?
Yep, I'm a born and raised local boy, born here in Idaho Falls, Idaho.
Yeah, so you're in Idaho Falls currently?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, we've been doing quite a bit because we've been doing our traveled series. So we've talked to a number of people from that area. I'm sure you know most of them that we've covered. But yeah, there's a lot of amazing waters in that area, not only lakes, but streams. What do you consider? Do you kind of have a home water that you consider one?
Yeah, our home river is the South Fork of the Snake River.
Yeah, South Fork Snake. And not, is the Henry's Fork, obviously that's nearby too. Is that kind of just not quite as big, or why do you go for the South Fork?
South Fork fits my interest of fishing, I guess, better. The Henry's Fork's a smaller river, not as fast at banks, and not as big a season either. So I tend to fish the Henry's Fork more first thing in the season, and then when it gets more into the summertime, I switch over to the South Fork and fish it clear into the fall.
Oh, right. And so right now, as we're looking, it's kind of close to mid-December. Are you guys still, is fishing done now for the season?
Yeah, people are still fishing. I kind of switch over to other things myself, but yeah, I would say even later in the year than I used to go back to fish the Henry's Fork, but I've not fished in this time of year as much more recently.
Okay. Then in the Expo that happened this year, we've been talking a little bit about this. I wasn't able to make it out. I'm hoping to make it out this next year. But how did that go? The East Idaho Fly Tying and Fishing Expo. How'd that event go this year?
Yeah, we had a great event this year. It was our first time back since COVID. So we took 3 years off for COVID. And in the meantime, we got a new facility, the Idaho Falls Mountain America Center. It's a hockey facility, multi-use facility was built. And we were actually, I think, the first venue to book with them. And they were just kind of finishing it up as we put on the show this last spring. And there was a lot of new things.
Yeah.
Several years off and new facility, and, all the costs and everything were different, but everything worked out really well. We had I think about 3,000 people show up. Wow. We run it for 2 days. So yeah, we had 3,000 people show up and had a good time.
Right. And this is kind of a mix between a lot of fly tying and then some companies that are there presenting products and things like that. Maybe describe, when you walk into the center, what you're looking at there.
Yeah. So the reason we put on this is for a fundraiser for our club. We're a Trout Unlimited chapter, the Snake River Cutthroats. And we've been doing this Expo now for 27 years. So this new one, this coming year will be the 28th year. And we've always considered ourselves a fly tying centric show. So we do feature a lot of tires. A lot of the other shows, there'll be some fly tires, on a small table in the corner, and our fly tires are right out in the middle. We have about 100 demonstrating fly tires over the whole time of the show. This year we had 46 tables going at one time. Mm-hmm. And then around the outside, so this is basically in the hockey rink, there actually was still ice on the floor, and they put a floor insulated layer down over it. So that was interesting too. Couldn't tell the ice was there, but yeah.
Amazing.
And then we had 45 vendors that kind of go around the outside. So our show has an open field because the taller vendors with the backdrops are just around the outside. So yeah, we got a pile of fly fishing vendors, boat vendors, equipment vendors, clothing vendors, all sorts of that kind of stuff. And then we also run workshops, tying workshops. So if people want to sit down in a small environment with 10 other people and learn to tie specific kind of flies, those are kind of 3-hour events. And then we have destination slideshows that people can sit down, and we have a person talking about kind of where or how to fish in our area. And then we have a women's program. So she does a all day kind of introduction to fishing, and then a separate class she does. This is Leslie Delago, runs our women's program. She does a tying class. So something specific for women. Find women are uncomfortable when they're hanging around a pile of men. So she does really well with that, and the women enjoy that. And then the second day, we kind of wrap it all up with a banquet and a live auction, silent auction, and that's kind of our main fundraiser.
Oh, nice.
And the whole show, the only thing we charge for is coming to the banquet, obviously for the food, and the tying workshops. All the rest of that is free and open to the public.
Oh, wow. Great. And does it look like you guys are going to be doing this again in 2024?
Yep. We signed a 3-year contract with the center when we did that. So certainly I don't ever see us wanting to move from that. It's a wonderful new facility. And yeah, we're already in the planning phases. We've been working on that probably a month already. And the dates this year are March 22nd and 23rd.
Oh, great. All right. I'll put those in the show notes, and we'll get a link to all this in the show notes so people can check it out. But it sounds like if somebody's listening now, maybe they're around the country listening. I mean, how far are people coming from? I know this is in eastern Idaho. Are you getting folks kind of from around mostly the adjacent states, or how does that look?
Yeah, adjacent states. We get a lot of people that come from California. We're kind of a summertime area from California. A lot of our tires will come from California, Oregon, Utah, Montana, Wyoming, and then even further. We have some that come from back east. We've had Charles Jardine come over from England even. Yep. So yeah, it draws people from a wide range.
Right on. What was the most memorable thing that happened there? I mean, you guys planned this whole thing. I imagine it's just a ton of work. When you get it going, did anything interesting happen that sticks out in your mind?
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, it was just a big juggling effort.
Was it? What's your role? What's your role there with the event?
I'm a co-chair. We kind of call my category people the senior advisors with the club because we've been here long enough. But with the Expo specifically, I'm a co-chair. I've organized most different parts of it throughout the years. I've been working with it for almost 20 years. So
wow.
Yeah, there's 3 of us that are co-chairs, and yeah, with going to a new facility, it was a lot of stuff to juggle, a lot of work last year, and we always said, okay, we'll put in the work last year and reap the benefits this year because it'll be a lot of it's already done. So hopefully that's true.
Yeah, that's right. And so did you guys find, I mean, I guess you probably had some goals set to think like, hey, we're going to get this many people there. Did it meet your expectations and all that looking back?
Yeah. The facility people were like, oh, you'll do much better. And we're like, yeah, it's a more expensive facility. So we were worried about that and how it would come out financially. But we saw a significant increase in the number of people. It's been 3 years and Idaho is getting more popular. So there's a lot of new faces here. So we have those people to draw on. So I think that helped with the numbers, and being in the new facility that everybody wanted to see helps out too. The fact that we're a free show, it was kind of the first, I think we were the first free show to be in that facility. So people, I think, took advantage of that just to come see the facility too. And then financially, we did better than we expected. We did well. So yeah, it worked out best all around.
Cool.
We got hosed by the weather. It's that time of year. That's always a crapshoot.
All right.
You get bad weather, I think more people show up, but then we're planning on having some casting classes outside, and it snowed I think 2 inches during the show, so we had to scramble, and luckily one of our people that helps out with one of the high school track teams, and it was their spring break week. So we ended up being able to use the high school gymnasium for the casting at the last minute. So that worked well.
There you go. Yeah, the weather is always I mean, I guess it's fly fishing, right? We were in New York last week, and the weather, same thing. It snowed 2 inches the night before. We weren't expecting it, and so it actually kept the rivers a little bit more turbid than we were hoping. So you know what I mean. It kind of it's tough, but it's part of fishing, right? You never know what's going to happen. Same with your event that time of year. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we like having it. Like I said, it's better when the weather's crappy. People aren't out doing yard stuff, and they come to the show, but you pay for it on some of the other things like the casting.
Yeah, gotcha. How do you guys go about finding all of the, the guests, the vendors? Do you kind of just put a shout out to everybody, or how do you choose who's going to be there?
Yeah, we've got our vendor chair right now is John Stenerson, and he works for Clacketcraft, and he's been going to shows in that role for a long time. So it's another person. Gary Barnes was involved with Loop USA. Now he's running Semper Fi. So we've got some people, local people that are involved in the chapter that are kind of involved in that industry, and go around to shows and, talk to people and see who we can bring to our show and build the kind of show that we want. So,
Nice. Yeah. And these events are around, I mean, they're definitely spread around the country. This one is, you guys with the Snake River Cutthroats or with Trout Unlimited. Talk about that a little bit with Trout Unlimited. How, I know there's some big things going on in that area, right? Especially on the South Fork. What is Trout Unlimited doing? Give a little shout out to them, some of their programs.
Yeah, we've been Trout Unlimited. We were fortunate here to have what they call the Home Rivers Initiative. And that's kind of a nationally funded person working on projects for Trout Unlimited. And we had that position here for probably 10 years. And that was good for our chapter because that gave us, good projects to be able to put the money we generate through the Expo into that are local projects. And they did a lot of work on the South Fork, and we're still doing a lot of work on the South Fork. They decided to kind of back off on that Home Rivers person. That person retired and they did not replace that. But the South Fork Initiative, which is a branch of the Henry's Fork Foundation, was formed, and their goal is just the South Fork as well. So we've been teaming up with them more recently to work on conservation projects on the river. The South Fork is kind of our main area, and Rainey Creek is one of the main tributaries on the South Fork that should be, and going back 50, 100 years ago, was a main spawning tributary for the river, and hasn't been. They have fish weirs on them so they can count the number of stocking fish, and it hasn't been, in the last 20 years, been a producing tributary. So we spent a lot of work trying to get that figured out and hopefully get that turned around so it is a fish factory again for our cutthroats and pumping them into our South Fork.
Right on. And I'm assuming people can just go to like Trout Unlimited, or can they go to your website and maybe give a shout out to that? What is your website for the Snake River Cutthroats?
Yeah, it's just snakerivercutthroats.org, and you can see what we're up to there, or Trout Unlimited or the South Fork Initiative. All three of those would have, it's the South Fork of the Snake River.
Yeah, perfect. And we've had a number of episodes now. We've had the Henry's Fork. Lots of people talking about the areas, but it's the South Fork, the Snake, the Henry's Fork come together to make the Snake River, which is a massive western river that eventually flows into the Columbia and all of that. So there's a lot going on up there. What is, maybe talk about, I think one thing we talked about in the past was the some of this, I'm not sure if this is kind of a political thing, but some of the removal of the rainbows. Is that something that Trout Unlimited is working on, or what's going on there with that current? Is that still going on?
Yeah, Trout Unlimited supports native fish. I mean, that's one of their stances. And in our area, that is the cutthroat. And they've been here for centuries. And the rainbows were introduced, and the rainbows are in 49 of the 50,
right? They're everywhere.
50
They're
states.
all around the world.
And the South Fork actually is considered the last main stem river. So like you said, a major artery river. It's the last main stem river that still has cutthroats in it.
Oh, wow.
So we kind of, our chapter, we're called the Snake River Cutthroats.
Yeah.
We take that personally, and we want to protect our local fish. And there are some people, and even a couple of outspoken guides, that want the rainbows, and because they fight harder. And if you want to fish rainbows, go fish the Henry's Fork, go fish the Madison. There's
a lot.
There's 20 other rivers within 2-hour driving range of our area you can catch rainbows on, and we don't agree with that, and think that the cutthroat should be here. The analogy I like to put is that's kind of like telling an elk hunter that you should let Cape buffalo.
Right.
Let's replace elk with Cape buffalo. It's really the same thing. No one in their right mind would ever consider that. But
No.
but Cape buffalo, they're stronger, bigger, tougher. I mean, that would be a better trophy. But the Rocky Mountain elk are what's here, and that's the same thing with the cutthroat. They've been here forever, and a lot of guides like the cutthroats.
Yeah.
I certainly like the cutthroats because they like to eat dry flies a lot more. So if you're into dry fly fishing, especially with bigger flies, cutthroats are easier prey and more apt to eat a dry fly, and not so much with the rainbows. So
yeah, not so much the rainbow. Yeah, no, I'm glad you clarified that a little bit, and I think that. Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree. I think that there's some areas, obviously every river is different, but if this is the last remaining main stem stock of cutthroats, I mean, there's some stuff you got to do, sometimes drastic, if it means protecting the diversity of a native fish, and so those choices aren't always easy, right?
yeah, Fish and Game is spearheading that. We support their work. We volunteer and help them. Trout Unlimited supports that work, but they're the ones that are really pushing that. And it all comes down mainly to a listing. I mean, their populations are getting low enough that it could potentially be listed as an endangered species. And the whole worry there is then it gets out of state Fish and Game's control and gets put into federal control, and then you have no control of and they're gonna save the fish, and that make me not being able to fish the river. So
yeah,
and some people get wrapped around the axle too. I mean, Fish and Game is actively they tried to let the fishermen do as much of it as possible. So they came up with a 3-pronged approach. They wanted to increase the spring flesh-out flows. The rainbows spawn in the main stem where the cutthroats spawn in the tributaries. So if they could get a historical flush, and that's really why the rainbows have taken over, is it's not a natural river anymore. We've got Palisades Dam and Jackson Lake Dam in there that control the big springtime flows that historically would have favored the cutthroat that are spawning in the side tributaries and disrupted the rainbows. So now that's not natural. That's why the rainbows have done so well in the rivers. So but their approach was that freshet, they call it, try to dump a bunch of water in the springtime and mess the reds up. But that they're just the river's water management system's not really set up at all for the fish. It's all for irrigation, and they just haven't been able to get the flows. And they've learned a lot and found out, okay, they almost have to get to flooding Idaho Falls levels to really be able to do it. And then they instigated no keep for the cutthroats, and then not mandatory, but no limit on the rainbow. So, they had some public meetings. The anglers said, hey, we want to be able to help you solve this problem. Don't do it yourself. And they did that for, I would say, 10 years. And it kind of kept it even, but hasn't got to where they wanted. So I think 3 years ago, they started shocking and removing the rainbows off of the reds. They transplant them. They move them to some of the fishing ponds and other areas. Oh, they move some over to the Henry's Fork. And so they're trying to see how that works. And I got to give them credit for going as far as they can. They originally didn't think, it's a big river. Summertime flows are 14,000 CFS, but they do it in the springtime, and they were successful. I've helped once with them netting fish and did well. When I helped, we transplanted them over on the Henry's Fork, and they've actually moved them clear over to central Idaho. They had a tributary to one of the medium-sized rivers over there, and they put a whole bunch of them over there and got a lot of great feedback from the people that were fishing over there. And that's what they want to do, is have good feedback. So all right, we're going to take more over there.
Right. Wow. Yeah. I think any of these operations are never easy, right? It's just invasive species in general. It's hard to get rid of them. I think a lot of people look at it as you're taking fish out of the river. That means there's going to be less fish. And it doesn't really work that way. When you look at the biological setup of it all, you're just taking fish out. There's always more fish in the river to fill the available slot. So the river can handle so many fish per mile. And if you take X number of fish out, there is an excess of fish waiting to fill those spots. So you don't really see a drop in your ability to catch fish. You're just catching more cutthroats than rainbows. Gotcha. Thanks for clarifying that. We were over there this year in early October, and we fished the Henry's Fork and the South Fork, and we were doing like a Euro nymphing school with Pete Erickson, and so it was really focused on nymphing. But it was fun. It was like, it's a beautiful river, floating, like drifting. Is that kind of how you do it? Let's talk about that a little bit. Your fishing. It sounds like you do some dry fly fishing. Are you floating mostly?
Yeah, especially in the summertime, the South Fork it's a big river, and in the summertime, the water's up to the bank. So it's not, that there are wading opportunities, but that tends to be more in gravel bars, riffles out in the middle. So it's not really a bank fishing friendly river in the middle of the summer. It is this time of year and early in the spring for sure, because the water's a lot lower and you can get foot access to some of those gravel bars a lot easier. So the majority of the time I fish it is from a boat. And I kind of first learned to fish the South Fork, what we call banging the bank. So it's back rowing.
Yep.
The oars always slowing the boat down. You're back rowing it. And I always tell everybody, if you can cut the distance your fly is from the bank in half, you'll double the number of fish. So you try to get it as close. If people are throwing it a foot from the bank and catching a dozen fish from in a day, you can cut that down to 6 inches from the bank, because our banks are deep. They're brushy and deep. So the fish, they want to hang out of the current. So they're tied against that brush where the current drops off. And the closer you can get it to the brush, if you're bank fishing like that, the better you do. And that's the kind of fishing I originally started fishing. I enjoy streamer fishing too. And I streamer fish quite a bit floating. A lot of people think streamer fishing is just a shady day, fall kind of thing. And that's not the case.
No.
You can catch fish on streamers anytime of the year, and it's, I always tell everybody, if you're not catching fish, do something different. If you're fishing the banks, you're out catching them, try streamers, try, kind of the last thing I'll try in the middle of summer is nymphing, but hey, sometimes that's what it takes.
Yeah, right. And are banging the banks, are you doing that with dry flies mostly?
Yep, usually a big dry fly. Some people like to try droppers, but you can't get it real close if you got a dropper. So it's usually a big Chernobyl ant or a big foam fly. And we tend to twitch them a fair amount too, just to get more attention.
Right on. And what's your what kind of boat are you running down there?
I mostly fish with friends in their drift boats. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of a boat geek. I own 14 boats, but I don't own a drift boat.
Oh, wow. You have 14 boats. So what are these boats? Are these a mixture of rafts, or what are they?
Yeah, I'm a whitewater guy too. So I've got a bigger whitewater raft that we run down the Middle Fork and the salmon whitewater stuff. I've got a smaller raft that I run down smaller rivers that you don't have access. And then I've got lots of kayaks, 3 whitewater kayaks, sea kayaks, duck hunting kayaks. I got a couple a lake boat, a jet boat. So
okay.
But all my friends have drift boats.
So you got everything but the drift, and I guess you don't need it just because your friends have the boat.
Yeah, you always have to go fishing with somebody, and all my fishing friends have drift boats. So I fish out of a drift boat most, on the river for sure. But
that's right. And most of those boats, the drift boats, hides or clackas, are those kind of typical?
Yeah, hides and clackas are the two popular. I would say on the South Fork, it's more clackas than hides. But then if you go over on the whitewaters, upstream, some around Jackson, then you see more of the hides that are higher sided. They're a little more whitewater.
Yeah, more
whitewater-ish.
That's right. In the Middle Fork, you see some boats there, right? Some of the wooden drift boats that are floating that one.
Yeah, I've seen some drift boats on that river on crazy low waters that I would have loved to see how they rode through some of that stuff.
I know, right?
Well, because they're beautiful wood drift boats, and the one trip it was 2.4 feet, which is extremely low, and even the outfitters, they were flying in their clients
flying in, miss the low stuff.
Yep, miss the high stuff.
Or the high stuff, right.
Where the water's really low. Yeah. But the boats have to get there. They can't fly a drift boat in. So, we started from the top with a private trip, and they even run those crazy huge sweet boats at crazy low water levels.
Oh, wow.
And we were, it took us 3 days to get to the Indian Creek airstrip. And here comes these drift boats. It's the guides. They call it deadheading. They get to put in, and they got to go all the way down to Indian Creek in a day, because that's how their permits work. So here comes these drift boats down. Just one guy in a boat, and usually you only see one or two, and then it'd be half an hour. You'd see another one. They're kind of all on their own. It's like, how do you do that?
Right.
Amazing rowers that they can take beautiful wood drift boats.
They're wood, right? Because they're and why are they mostly wood drift boats down there, do you think?
I don't know.
Yeah, because you think a fiberglass or something else might be a little more durable.
Yeah, a fiberglass would probably be more durable, but I don't know. They're historic and beautiful, but yeah, you wouldn't want to ding them up. But aluminum one's going to get banged up, and fiberglass one's going to get banged up. I like I said, I would just love to see them run a couple of the rapids, because I mean, there's barely enough room for your raft. There's no room for your oars. So your oars are lifted up going near, you barely fit between the rocks. And, you go through a slide like that and you got to do a 90-degree turn and slide over. And, we're constantly bouncing off the rocks. And
Right.
they can't be doing that. So
yeah, totally. No, it's a cool area because you have that, the Middle Fork. We talked about the Middle Fork on a recent episode as well. And then you said the salmon. I mean, you've got the main salmon. Is that something you guys do quite a bit? Or are you doing these trips typically every year?
I would say we do a big whitewater trip every 3 years or so. This year we did float the Maine salmon and the Smith River over in Montana.
Oh, Smith. Yeah.
And we did float the Middle Fork last year. So
yeah. How was the Middle Fork? Was it low or high?
It was medium.
Medium. Yeah.
I think it was running 3 feet.
3 feet. Okay.
I think the lowest we ran was actually 1.4. And I think last time it was like 2.7. And I was surprised. It felt low, but I couldn't believe we ran it at the lowest we had when it felt low at this level. But.
Yeah. Do you get any, are there any rapids there that you kind of get fired up that, get a little anxious on? Or you got them pretty dialed?
The Middle Fork is a impressive river. It's 100 miles and there are a pile of whitewater. And when it gets lower, it gets more technical and not so pushy. You still can wrap boats pretty easy. Then the rocks are more prone. So you can wrap boats easy, but maybe the odds of flipping a boat in the middle of a big rapid are lower because it's more technical rather than big.
Gotcha. No, it's I've been hoping to get back out there and do that trip again. And when we did it, it was really low. And it was, like you said, it was technical. We were hitting a lot of rocks, but it wasn't as crazy. So, have you been at the higher flows where things are really pushing and boats are flipping? And there must be some crazy things that have happened with all that whitewater.
The highest we've done it at is 5 feet, and I did that in a kayak, and that was a pretty comfortable, friendly level. I've got some friends that have been doing it for way longer than I have, and they're the kind of rule of thumb. Once it gets above 6 feet, it gets really pushy and crazy. And I think this last year it hit 7 feet.
Oh, so wow!
Our rule of thumb is, I don't do whitewater for the excitement. I do it for the scenery and the fishing and that kind of thing. So I've never been one that sought out the craziness of it. But so our rule of thumb is always, we'll get on it if it's, you never get on it while it's going up. So if it's going up, if your limit is maybe 5 feet, you don't get on it at 4.5 feet, 5 feet when it's going up. You wait until it peaks and then you wait till it's coming down. And then you get on it because it can get crazy. You can get on it at 4 feet and it can be 7 feet in 3 or 4 days. And you're like, what did I sign up for here?
Right. How do you do that with the passes? Because isn't this like you get your pass for a certain time of week or something like that? How do you do it? Yeah.
It's a lottery. And so there's 4 rivers in the state of Idaho: the Selway, the Middle Fork, the Maine Salmon, and Hell's Canyon are the 4 that are lottery systems. And so I've only drawn once, but got enough friends that we boat with that I've been down it like, I think 8 times, the Middle Fork.
Yeah. So it's doable. So if somebody's listening now and they want to do this trip, I guess they just go to the website. Is it a national forest or Forest Service sort of thing, or how do they get their permits for the Middle Fork?
Yeah, it's all our rivers are managed by the Forest Service. So yeah. And then all the outfitters, if someone just wants to go on a trip and wants to go with an outfitter, they get launches every day. So
yeah,
pretty much can just buy a trip on an outfitter. They sell out pretty quickly. So
yeah, perfect. So Idaho Falls, so you've been there a long time. What do you love about Idaho Falls? What keeps you there?
It's close to a lot of things, a lot of outdoor things, I guess. So it's not that pretty of a town. It's a desert, on the edge of the desert. So it's not, I've recently been to some other places in Arizona. I just spent a month in Arizona and Flagstaff and, all the big, pretty ponderosa pine forests, and spent a week in Pace in Arizona. And, that's prettier than here, but, we've got 5 blue ribbon rivers
yeah.
within 2 hours. I was an outdoor person. Have been an outdoor person my whole life. So I did backcountry skiing, rock climbing, fishing, hunting. My dad was he came from Nebraska to be a hunter, elk hunter. So I hunted a lot when I was growing up.
Yeah.
Just a lot to do here.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's what I keep hearing is that not only is there the fishing and the hunting, but there's everything else. You got all these, especially the winter sports. I think it's known as, I think it's the snowmobile capital of the world, right? You got all these different things going on out there. It seems like there's just like right now, are you guys I guess you're getting some snow, or when's the season come where you kind of, get into the skiing and all that? Is that right now?
Depends on the year. Last year, so I help out with Idaho Falls Ski Club. I maintain 2 wall tents above a ski hill just above town for cross-country skiing. And we always put those up late November, early December. And last year I got back a week before Thanksgiving and there was already 2 feet of snow on the ground.
Wow.
And we usually put the floor, drive in and put the floors down, at end of November. And we weren't doing that. We had to change our plan and haul everything in by snowmobile. So last year was different. It was, like I said, middle of November when we had 2 feet of snow on the ground, but usually it's a couple of weeks. Middle of December usually is when the ski season starts.
Okay. And so those tents, so this is something where you put these up for the season and then you're just there to help people that are cross-country skiing, or how does that work?
Yeah, they're warming tents for cross-country skiing. And then one tent, actually people can reserve it and spend the night in it. It's a 12 by 20 tent. They both got wood stoves in them. And yeah, just kind of a resource for the local cross-country skiers.
That's awesome. And then people man it. There's somebody there manning the tent throughout the season?
No. We just put the tents out and enough users. The only thing we got to do is keep the snow off the roofs, and there's enough users there, and they understand they have to do that if we want to keep them upright.
Gotcha.
So yeah, people just, it doesn't take too much to knock the snow off.
Well, this is awesome. Yeah. So where would you go if someone wanted to find out about that and do some of that cross-country skiing? How can they track this down?
Yeah, the Idaho Falls Ski Club's webpage. I think it's just idahofallsskiclub.org.
Yeah. Yeah, you must get, you're obviously close to Yellowstone. That's another thing we haven't talked about, but you've got all sorts of, all of that. Or do you think it's an equal amount of summer and winter activities out there, or it seems like there's a lot of both?
There's plenty to do in the winter if you're into that kind of thing.
Yeah.
If you're into cross-country skiing, downhill skiing, snowmobiling, ice fishing, there's plenty to do. But if you're a warm weather person, then yeah, it's a long winter. We got snow just before Thanksgiving, and we will have that snow in the ground here until it melts in March.
Oh, in March. I was gonna say, so the Expo's around March 22nd. So there'll still be snow on the ground by then?
Up in the mountains for sure. Yeah, it's amazing. We take those tents out probably mid-March. We took it out this year, and that was the deepest snowpack we had all year. So you get more snow, and it just doesn't, it settles some, but it doesn't really melt. More snow. And then spring gets here and it melts. And in like 2 weeks, you lose 5 feet of snow.
Oh, wow. Just like that.
So it's funny. We're up there, I've got pictures. We're taking down the wall tent, and there's 5 feet of snow beside the tent. When we're done, here's this huge hole in the snow with a plywood floor.
Oh, wow.
And then, 2 weeks later, it's all gone.
Yeah. What is this a homemade wall tent, or is there a brand that is behind the tent?
No, the time these were built, I don't think there was.
Yeah, it's a while ago. Yeah,
many brands. Well, actually, our tents are new now, and they were built by a local canvas company, Idaho Canvas.
Oh yeah, Idaho Canvas. Okay, nice. Well, let's go back to the Expo a little bit here. So anything else we want to, as we look ahead, because I want to get people primed up for that. So are you going to have probably some of the same vendors, some of the same tires? What can people expect for this next year coming up here in March?
Yeah, so we should have a few more vendors. We're a new facility. We kind of learned some things last year. We kind of learned, besides the hockey arena area, there's a concourse around the outside. So we're going to take advantage of that, maybe get some more vendors and use that space, and hopefully get a few more tires too. 100 tires is plenty, but
yeah.
The one thing, I guess the one drawback to this facility is the banquet facility. The old facility, we had one room, so we had to change the show. So what was it? 3:30, we kicked all the vendors out, and 5:00 we opened the door for the banquet. So
oh wow.
We changed the whole entire room over, kicked all the vendors out, cleaned up the floor, and set up all the banquet tables. So that's what's nice about this area, is they have a separate convention center, but that convention center isn't quite as large. So where we used to be able to seat 500 people, now we can only seat like 330 people at the banquet. And we sold that out. So I I would say if anybody wants to come to the banquet and the live auction and enjoy that night and help us raise some funds, you got to get your tickets early for that.
You do.
Yeah, that will obviously sell it again.
And where would they go if they want to get those tickets right now?
They're not on sale yet. We probably don't put them on sale until probably the 1st of February.
Okay.
So that'll be the snakerivercutthroats.org is when you can see where everything that's going on, and you can sign up for the workshops online there this year, and also buy the banquet tickets or packages if you want a raffle ticket package.
Oh, perfect.
To go with your banquet. But yeah, definitely, if you want to go to the tying workshops, like I said, that is something you can't just come to the show. You need to be signed up ahead of time. And then the banquet, that's really the only two things that people have to get signed up ahead of time before they come.
Yeah. Did Renee Harrop, did he make it down this last year?
I don't think so. Renee's kind of a personal guy. He doesn't show up a lot. Leslie, his daughter Leslie, taught fly tying classes with us a lot over the years and has a presence. Mike Lawson used to offer trips through our expo, through the light he would donate and live auction, and Jack Dennis as well. So we used to have some personal trips from some big name people. They're getting
older.
Yeah, they don't want to do that anymore, and I certainly don't blame them.
Who are the new? That's always the question, because we've had a lot of old, amazing people, older people that have, like you said, Jack Dennis, he's still out there. I mean, I think Mike, all those people are out there. It's just they're slowing down. Who are the next people? Like who are those people at your show that are maybe the next up and comers that are going to be the next Mike Lawsons? Even though we can't really replace somebody like Mike.
I don't. I mean, there's tying people,
Yeah,
but I don't see that. I mean, those guys. Bob Jacklin, Mike Lawson, Jack Dennis.
Yep.
They all were kind of at the start of the popularity of fly fishing. I mean, when A River Runs Through It came out and fly fishing took off, they were in the fly shop business, and they had the guide businesses and had the fly shops and got that notoriety. But I don't see that anymore, really. There's enough fly shops around, and they're busy running their business and don't need to be the celebrities, and there's enough influx of a whole bunch of different guide shops around. You just don't see those expert people that are willing to share, interested in being a celebrity and want to share, write books and do talks. Yeah, you just don't see that anymore.
Yeah, has changed. Are you getting an influx of newer, or is it mostly older folks, or are you seeing some younger generation at your event?
Oh, our tires tend to be a little more we get a lot of everything, but I would say, not having the show for the last 3 years, I would say this year we did see an increase in even kids. We have some tying tables, and I would say there was more kids that came. Nice. And then more of the, just starting your personal life, your profession, people in their 20s or whatever. Increase in that category of people too.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So if somebody was wanting to come to that, this is in, mid, like you said, March 22nd. What does that look like if they're kind of coming from a distance? Where would they be staying? Do you have recommendations on hotels, or if they're coming from a ways, what are people doing?
Yeah. There are a few, not out there just yet, but when we get closer to the show, we do have deals with, you can get reduced rates. It's at a couple of hotels that are close to the venue. So that's there. And the reason we kind of also settled on, we used to do this in April, I think the third week of April, and we ran into a conflict with a show in California. And also when you get into April, our runoff season is starting, and our fishing actually gets worse, where in March you're pre-runoff. So the Henry's Fork actually, and a lot of the other smaller rivers in our area are better fishing. So as long as it's not snowing, it's actually better fishing in March than it would be in April. So that was kind of one of the reasons why we settled on that date, is because I think a lot of people do come from the area. Certainly our tires, coming from California, whatever, they're not just wanting to sit down and tie. They want to combine it into a trip. So they fish some of the local area as well then.
Right. Yeah. So March, you can definitely get some fishing out there. Well, I guess you have the tailwater, so throughout the whole year you can fish out there.
Yep. And like I said, you get into April, then the natural runoff starts to happen, and the water gets higher and more turbid. So the fishing's not as good, but March is still the pre-runoff springtime season. So as long as you get a warm weather day, the fishing can be really good.
Perfect. And if somebody wanted to learn more about the fishing, I guess like we said, there's a ton of great fly shops. Maybe we could start to take it out here with our fly shop shout out here. And then I have a couple of other random questions for you. But so I wanted to hear about that. We've talked to a number of these fly shops from around the area, but this is presented by Yellowstone Teton Territory, who's obviously in your, I think they actually promote the event, right? Do you know the folks involved with that?
Yeah, they were a big part with we got hooked in with them through the Mountain America Center. And last year, yeah, they did pony up and help us promote the show a lot.
Nice. What is, so let's talk fly shops. What is your local fly? You're in Idaho Falls, so I know there's a few big ones. I think even maybe the Fly Fish Food guys have purchased one up in that area. But what is your local fly shop?
Yeah, so our local fly shop for my whole my whole life here has been Jimmy's Fly Shop in town here, and he did retire this last year, sold his fly shop, had been in the market to sell it for a while, and I'm glad he got the chance to retire finally. That amazing guy did more for fly fishing and our Snake River Cutthroats than anybody I've ever met. But he did sell that to Fly Fish Food, and they weren't on kind of our radar as someone that might take that over, and we're all wondering, man, who's going to replace Jimmy? And that was an awesome fit because Fly Fish Food Jimmy was a fly tying centric shop. Rather, we mentioned all the other shops in the area, in the more destination, West Yellowstone, Jackson kind of things. Those are outfitters, and that's kind of their main business. And we don't have, Jimmy never guided out of that shop, never had that. It's a fishing shop. And we were real pleased that Fly Fish Food took that over because that's their business, is tying materials. And they took Jimmy's crazy amount of inventory to like tripled it. So now we've got an amazing selection of materials here in town for tying.
Yeah. So you see it. So you see a lot more materials. And then is Jimmy still around the fly shop occasionally?
No, he's retired. He comes in as they need to help figure things out. That
yeah, sure.
I think, yeah, he's fishing.
Yeah, he's fishing. That's right.
And he should be.
Yeah, that's cool. So Jimmy
deserves it.
Yeah. And are there other fly shops in Idaho Falls?
That's the main fly fishing only shop. There's a Sportsman's and Cabela's here, but they don't have near the stuff that Jimmy's does by any means.
That's right. Yeah. And what do you when you think about Jimmy, what made him so unique? How would you paint that picture of somebody who's never met him before? Jimmy's
just one of the nicest, most congenial people you could ever meet. And he trained all his employees to do the same thing. When you walked in their shop, he's like, hey, Dave, how's it going? Let us know if you need anything. And they just, no high pressure, no nothing, and we had all our Expo planning meetings in his shop. He just opens the door to all of that and supported us with donations and everything over the years. And just his goal was, let's just make fly fishing and tying in this area as good as it can, and I'll reap the benefits. And he did. Had a very successful shop.
That's awesome. Yeah, I hope to get Jimmy on. I would love to hear more of that story from him as well. So, let's jump into a few random ones, then we'll take it out of here. So, like we said, the Yellowstone Teton Territory, we're helping to promote some of the, local businesses and brands around that area. But so let's think of this. So somebody's doing a trip up there. What would be, I'm not sure, restaurants out there? Do you guys get out? Would you have one recommendation if somebody was fishing there, during the time of the event for the expo? Where would they go and get some dinner? Do you guys have a favorite place?
Yeah, I would say my favorite kind of steak place is probably Stockman's.
Stockman's?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a nice steak place. And there's a couple other ones. Jakers is another one, and the Sandpiper are kind of our three nice steak places. And they're all three pretty close to the river. We have the Snake River flowing through town here. And both, I guess, Sandpiper is the only one that actually has a deck that is outlooking on the river, but they're all pretty close to it.
Perfect. And then you talked about cross-country skiing. Any other activities that you like doing, whether it's, throughout the year other than the skiing, anything outdoor?
Yeah, downhill skiing. I mean, we've got Targhee.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Yeah, Targhee I grew up skiing there. I backcountry skied on Jackson Pass a lot, which is the same kind of snow. Jackson Hole is on the other side, but it gets more sun. And I spent my 30s traveling all over the West, skiing different places, and you never find any snow that's better than Targhee.
Really?
So if you're after quality powder snow, light fluffy snow, yeah, it doesn't any better from all the places I've skied.
And Targhee and where is that in relation to Jackson?
It's just on the other side of the Tetons in the Driggs Valley.
Oh, in Driggs. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so Target, yeah, we must have been close because we stayed in Driggs when we were down there fishing at Airbnb. So yeah, it is amazing because you're literally, and Jeff, we've had some guests on. Jeff Courier, I know when he was on here last, he talked about how, he lived in on the west side and just went over the mountains to get over to Jackson because it's so spendy. But I think everything's getting a little spendy there, even the Driggs in those areas, right? Because it's just
Driggs and Victor are blowing up too, and it's turning into a Jackson.
It is, right. And as Idaho Falls is just kind of it's kind of a different type of town. It's you're not seeing the same thing?
No, I would say the last 5 years, we're definitely doing that too. We've probably seen a 25% increase in the last 5 years in population here. And it is a richer clientele that's moving into retiring to the area, basically.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, let's keep going down this with our rapid fire here. So we talked flies. You mentioned the Chernobyl ant. What's your one, if you had the one fly for dry fly other than that one, or is that your pattern if you're fishing in the summer?
Yeah. I mean, we tie all our own flies. So the Chernobyl ant is a genre.
Yeah.
And you can paint it in whatever colors. That is my favorite dry fly, bang in the banks fly, because we can twitch it well. It floats real well. And the fish just like it. I mean, it got picked up by the guides, and I fished with World Cast anglers this year. My wife bought a trip at the Expo, 2-day overnight trip, and we fished with them. And the guide had us on a different kind of hopper golden stone pattern. Just fished that with my wife, and she did really well with it. And I got tired of that, and I put on a purple Chernobyl, and he's like, well, okay.
Yep.
And I caught fish on, and he's like, wow, I'm surprised they still eat that.
Oh, really?
It got really popular. And
right.
The more, but when you're tying them your own, you can make your own colors, and they're never exactly like the popular fly in the fly shop that everybody buys. So
yeah, definitely. And who's your guide? Who was that guided you that day?
Oh, geez, he'd asked me that. I don't remember his name.
I'm trying to think because we went out. Well, Pete works with WorldCast as well, so we met the owner and hung out with those guys a little bit. But yeah, they got a big crew. I mean, I think they have like 40 or 50 guides or something like that. Yeah,
they do. And they came to the Expo. That a lot of the guides, they don't, I guess, look at it. There's that much business. I mean, the locals don't buy trips on the local rivers, right? So they haven't come to our Expo. But yeah, the WorldCast came and they brought more of their shop, and we're selling items and stuff. And it was fun to see them there. And yeah, they do have a big shop and a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's take it out of here. I always love to ask the podcast music question. Do you listen to any podcasts, or do you do more music? Or what do you listen to more? Do you have any podcasts in your queue, or do you listen to music? What's that look like when you're traveling to go fishing?
Yeah, I play music off an MP3 player, not really a streaming guy.
Okay.
For sound. Yep.
Yeah. How about podcasts? Have you got into that at all?
No, not really.
Not really. There you go. So we got a potential new future podcast listener. They say that about 50% of the population in the U.S. listens to podcasts, and the other 50 doesn't. So I guess you're one of the other. That's good.
There you go.
So give us some music to put in the show notes to put on Instagram. What would be something? What type of music, or do you have a group or genre, or what do you listen to?
We've been listening to the Record Company a lot lately.
The Record Company.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. And what type of music is that?
Oh, it's kind of Southern rock, I think.
Oh, nice. Southern rock. Awesome.
They were in Sun Valley. We had a concert. My wife got us plugged into 3 different concerts over there, and that was the one we enjoyed the most. Perfect. All right, good. Well, we'll put this in the show notes. We'll get a link to the Record Company if we can, a video or something there, and kind of scratching my own itch. I always love to get some new tunes. So perfect, Dave. Well, I think that's good. I guess maybe just give a heads up. So you got the big in the next 6 months or so. You've got the big event coming up in March. What else are you looking at? Are you excited about over the next 6 months to a year, for you or the Snake River Cutthroats? Oh, I just enjoy the coming of the springtime season, fishing season. Yep. So there's a lake I like to fish around here, actually, for panfish. Oh, really? I've been fishing that lake. I grew up fishing it, and my wife did as well for forever ago when we were 6 years old. And I've been going back to that lake for years. So since we both have history there, we like to spend a week there and every June. So there you go. That's it. I mean, so the Stillwater's still good there, right? I mean, you still hit that as much as the rivers. Yeah. It just kind of depends on what you're interested in, but yeah, we certainly have good Henry's Lake. That's yeah. Anybody in the country probably has heard about Henry's Lake, and yep. And more recently, I've even gotten into smallmouth fishing, which is kind of rare in this area, but we do have some smallmouth fishing. And we put together a pike trip actually that a bunch of us on the club were going. So One of the guys that used to be a Trout Unlimited guy is now running a travel business, Hatch Adventures, and he had an article in the paper about him checking out a potential pike place up in the Yukon. So we got hooked up with him, and 10 of us are going to go up there in early June and chase some pike. We've done a trip over in Saskatchewan on Reindeer Lake once before. So those guys, people that went on that are like, oh, we got to do that again. So it's always fun. If you're a streamer fisherman, pike is like pure adrenaline.
Pike is it. So you're heading up north up to Canada to hit the pike.
Yep. Clear north, Yukon, clear up by Alaska.
Oh, wow. Yukon.
Yep.
That's really cool, man. And so this is part of your local TU chapter that the people are you're connecting putting these trips together?
Yeah. Yep.
Wow. And what is that with your chapter? What is the, what are you guys doing mostly there? It sounds like you got some events. So what keeps people coming back to, the Snake River Cutthroats?
Yeah. So it's just a nonprofit just to kind of, get people together that like fishing. So our main fundraiser is at Expo, and then we turn around and do fund and also carry out our own conservation projects. So we do, 3 or 4 or 5 of those a year, build fence. We did some in-stream. We did work up on the Salmon River or tributaries of the Salmon for 25 years. We did different projects up there, more for steelhead stuff. Now we're doing more stuff more locally. Yeah. And then over the summer, we've got fishing outings. So it's just kind of get-togethers with people. We have a summer picnic and Christmas party. I'm wrapping gifts. Got a pile of gifts here on the floor for the Christmas party. And then we do some education stuff. We have tying workshops, kind of learning how to tie beginning.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. You guys are doing those kind of at local pubs or something like that? Or
yeah, that one's Tie One On. So
Tie One On.
We have a get-together once a month and just bring in kind of a noted tyer, and he ties and shares kind of his patterns and what he's tying.
Yeah. I love how you guys do it, because I haven't been to one, but I was checking out some of the photos, and you've got kind of the big screen on. And is that typically at like a pub, or where do you guys do that?
Yeah, it's called Tap and Fill. It's a local pub.
Perfect. Tap and Fill. And then you got the big screen, which is cool. So it's all blown up. So from hanging out, you can just sit wherever and then watch it on the big screen.
Yeah, I mean, we're just in the bar, so there's a lot of people that just come to the bar. So yeah, we get a lot of people just walking over. What is going on back here?
Yeah, you're probably recruiting some new people, right? Some new fly anglers maybe at the event. Yeah,
and that was kind of the goal with that thing, is to get some. I mean, there's always everybody's different groups of people, and that's a younger crowd that we kind of get with that. And we do the Fly Fishing Film Festival as part of the Expo, and we see a totally different group of people that come to that than a lot of the other stuff. So yeah, we try to be diverse enough to give something that everybody can enjoy.
Sweet. All right, Dave. Well, I think if people want to connect with the Expo, your website, right? SnakeRiverCutthroats.org. Is that the best place?
Yep. That's the club and the Expo.
Good deal. Okay. Well, we'll put that link in the show notes as well. And just want to thank you today for your time. I'm hopefully going to be out there this year. I'd love to, meet up with you and everybody there and chat about it. I know we've had at least one episode here where we talked about it, but I know we're going to have more of this going forward. So I appreciate all your time today, and looking forward to hopefully meeting you in person.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
That's a wrap on Traveled, part of the Wet Fly Swing podcast and Swing Outdoors. This podcast was supported by Eastern Idaho's Yellowstone Teton territory. You can support this podcast in Eastern Idaho by heading over to wetflyswing.com/Teton right now, and you can let any of the brands know that you found them through this podcast, and click in there and check out all the great brands. We've had a number of them on this podcast, and we would love you to find out all the good stuff they have going. You can also check in with me anytime, Dave at wetflyswing.com, if you have any questions or feedback or have an idea of where we should be traveling to next. And one big reminder before we get out of here, the Stillwater School is going right now. If you go to wetflyswing.com/Stillwater School, you can find out if we have any slots available for the big trip out to this part of Eastern Idaho. Phil Roy is going to be our guru. He's going to be breaking out the Stillwater magic. And if you wanted to up your game this year, this is your best chance right now. You can check in there or send me an email. Like I said, Dave at wetflyswing.com. And as we roll out of here, I just want to thank you for taking the time today to check out the Traveled podcast. And I appreciate you for your support and all the listens here. And I hope you have a chance to experience that road less travel.